that we can share with the SMEs to help build their capacity and knowledge. They are all trying to struggle with various issues, say access to finance, access to resources, human resources, management issues. So we felt that the SME toolkit would be a good way to kickstart the process. This actually was then asked by UN New York that whether Bangladesh would like to pilot the SME toolkit. We piloted luckily with Brac Bank, one of the biggest banks in the country, working across Bangladesh and having a very big clientele of SMEs. We piloted it within 3 workshops. Later on in the day, we'll share the pictures with you, photographs with you. We also felt that, we needed to celebrate the SMEs. This is actually a celebration. This celebration will kickstart in Bangladesh, working with SMEs, building their capacity, giving them the opportunity on sustainable development issues. So, Mary Lou, I would like to ask you to come up and say a few words on behalf of UN Global Compact. Thank you.
Well, hello everyone. As Shahaminad mentioned, I flew from New York actually my Saturday morning, and I got here yesterday night, so a full weekend of travel, but I'm really happy to be here with all of you in a full room of like-minded people who wanted to learn more about sustainability and discuss opportunities and challenges. We're really happy with the different partners who agreed to work with us on that event and also pilot, as Shahamin has mentioned, the playbook focusing on how integrating SMEs and sustainable supply chain. But another work stream that we are working on quite a lot at the New York headquarters is decent work and our engagement toolkit on decent work. So as much as it is important for SMEs to understand better what the expectations are when it comes to sustainability, I think this toolkit or the work that we're doing at, within our Decent Work Action Platform, which is made of big companies mostly, is how to actually enable SMEs to do that, and looking at their own sourcing practices and the decisions that they are making when they engage with suppliers, and trying to think of if it makes it possible for smaller enterprises and SMEs in particular to be sustainable, to have decent working conditions in their workforce if they make such decisions when they purchase or else. So this is a big work stream. I think it's quite important, and we'll discuss it a bit further in the workshop that we have at 11:30 after these wonderful presentations. And without further ado, I think I will give the floor to our panelists, and Shahamin, I'll let you go in order if you want.
Thank you, Mary Lou, for that short introduction. I would like to call upon Ms. Maya Sepu, the UN Resident Coordinator of Bangladesh, to say a few words. Thank you.
Esteemed guests and participants, thank you all for being here this morning, and thank you very much to the organizers for asking me to say a few words on behalf of the United Nations family in Bangladesh. The SDGs, the principal coordinator will join us shortly, and there's been a number of discussions with him regarding the role of the private sector in supporting achievement of the SDGs. So I'm very pleased to see this event today, because I think this will actually translate some of those conversations into another level of concreteness in terms of what are we really talking about when we're talking about the private sector's role in achieving the SDGs. What is often the focus when we look at the expectations on the private sector is that the private sector will step in to fulfill the funding gap for the SDGs. It's really important to recognize that it actually goes much beyond that. It's not about funding only. The SDGs actually represent a business opportunity for the private sector as well. In fact, the business case exists across the SDGs in food, in agriculture, in cities, energies, materials, health, and well-being. These sectors are approximately 60% of the real economy. And the principal coordinator. SMEs account for the majority of firms in most countries and the vast majority of jobs, 50% and more in developing countries, and they contribute to 50% of the world's GDP. In Bangladesh, micro, small, and medium enterprises are 91% of the total enterprises in Bangladesh. 91%. I think that number speaks volumes of the importance of this event. For that 91% to be the driver of the economy, we need the sustainability of the SMEs. In addition to that important number of 91%, according to Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, in the financial year 2015 to 2016, the contribution of SMEs to Bangladesh GDP was 31%. And that's a number we should reflect on a little bit because it's actually 80% in India, it's 60% in China. So the sustainability consideration, of course, also comes with profitability and business environment. Initiatives have been launched to support this very important 91% of businesses in Bangladesh. This includes the Bangladesh Bank requirement to have banks dispersing 25% of total loans to SMEs, but there still are barriers to the uptake and scale of such financial management. And this links to a whole range of issues that I'm sure we will discuss here. A few examples of what the United Nations family in Bangladesh is doing in these sectors. We have FAO working on improving market linkages for small farmers, value addition, and looking into the quality and safety of the food system. We have ILO through the upskilling SME support, looking into supporting policymakers and program managers of SME training, funding schemes to increase impact. We also have a conversation across the UN system and with government on the decent work agenda, which was also referred to by the previous speaker, as well as the job strategy. UNDP, through the business call to action, is supporting companies to plan for impact across the value chain and is helping SMEs to tap into the SDGs as a business case. And we have UNDP working with the ICT Ministry to A2I on e-commerce platforms, connecting SMEs to leading local and international e-commerce platforms, and this is already reaching a great number of micro merchants today. We also have some good examples of UN-supported innovation through the SMEs. I think when you look at the number of people employed, the share of these enterprises in the economy, the aspect that should not be forgotten is innovation. A lot of the innovation is coming from these enterprises, which is another reason for giving careful consideration to their sustainability. So a few examples. Drink Well is working with Dhaka Wasa to give access to safe drinking water through water ATMs. Sokipat is UNDP's business call to action supported SMEs that is providing affordable sanitary pads while raising awareness on hygiene. and Biotech Bangladesh is recycling cooking oil into affordable biofuel. Last week was actually the celebration of the World UN Habitat Day, which spoke about waste to wealth and the whole potential which is there in terms of recycling. So that's an example of a recycling initiative. UNICEF is supporting businesses, including SMEs, to integrate the Better Business for Children and Mothers at Work programs, which help businesses strengthen respect and support for the rights of women and children in a way which achieves outcomes not just for the people, but for the businesses too. Promising results are already being realized amongst participating businesses who are enjoying better worker retention and increased efficiency amongst the workforces. I think it is really important that we have SDG 12, ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns, as something that guides the discussion here today. Consumer choices are changing globally. The consideration to the energy efficiency, environmental impact, and labor standards is increasingly becoming a demand by both investors and consumers alike. And this is, I know, something that Bangladesh is very much aware of. Confidence that sustainability in SMEs can strengthen the growth of Bangladesh, I think, is beyond any doubt. This will also help its positioning in global trade and value change. Let me close by ensuring you that the United Nations stands ready to work with the government, with the private sector, to jointly support and promote a sustainable SME sector in Bangladesh and achievement of SDG 12, ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Ms. Supo, for the excellent deliberation. I think it highlights that how important SMEs are in Bangladesh, the 91% that we just heard. And that takes us to Mr. Salim R.F. Hussain, Managing Director and CEO of Brac Bank. Brac Bank is, as you know, a very well-known bank in Bangladesh. It's at a national level, working across the regions on SME financing and SME support. So I would like to request Mr. Salim R.F. Hussain to please say a few words. Thank you.
Mr. Abul Kalam Azad, Chief Coordinator for SDG Affairs in the Prime Minister's Office, Government of Bangladesh, Ms. Mia Sepo, UN Resident Coordinator Bangladesh, Mr. Kamranti Rahman, President Bangladesh Employers Federation, Ms. Leela Rashid, General Manager, SME and Special Programs Department, Bangladesh Bank, Ms. Shamin Zaman, Executive Director, Global Compact Network, Bangladesh, distinguished guests and valued customers, and of course our friends from the media. Assalamu alaikum and a warm welcome to all of you. The concept of sustainability is a high priority for the whole world today, and especially in the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which account for, as you just heard from Mia, close to 90% of all global companies. They generally are accepted to provide 70% of employment across the world. If we look at Bangladesh, we have, by latest estimates, over 6 million SMEs, accounting for 75% of the domestic economy, employing close to 35% of the workforce, and contributing at least 20% of the GDP. SMEs are very, very importantly playing a vital role in the country's GDP growth rate over the last 1.5 decades. However, I think we all recognize, despite the efforts over the last 2 decades in particular, by the government, by the private sector, the financial institutions, the development partners, the potential of our SME clientele, the SME segment, is far from being fully optimized. Why? Obviously, there is a lack of skilled manpower, underdeveloped sales channels, and certainly a very low level of financial inclusion, despite what so many of us have been doing for, as I said, close to 2 decades. The missing middle that SMEs were when Brac Bank started in 2001 are still the missing middle. And while many clients have come under the purview of banking services and the MFIs and the MFSs, still it is a very large missing middle in Bangladesh, much of which is still dependent on unofficial or unorganized lending sources. When it comes to Brac Bank, we've been supporting this SME business sector for many years now. It is our lifeblood. This morning somebody asked me, why is Brac Bank in SME? Do we do anything else? Actually, SMEs account for 40% of our client segments. The remaining 60% is divided amongst what we call corporate and commercial businesses, and also retail businesses. Why is Brac Bank focused on SMEs? We feel that it is the best way to further our objective of financial inclusion. When we look at the way to do that in Bangladesh, we felt right from the start, when Sir Fazl Hassan Abed started off Brac Bank in 2001, we felt that this is the way that we can best add value to our country. We can generate employment. We can add more granular value to many different entrepreneurs, which is why we are in the SME segment. If we look at our growth rates in this particular segment, currently we have a book of about $1.3 billion US, and the growth rate is about 27-28% year on year for the last 3-4 years. We are trying hard to double that. Is it going to happen overnight, a 50% year-on-year growth rate? Obviously not. It's going to take us a few years, but we expect to be able to do that in 3 to 4 years with a new digitalization strategy that we're putting into place. As a responsible bank at Brac, caring for sustainability, communicating and passing on these important core UNGC values to our SME clients is a very important priority for us. We have many priorities, and obviously bringing them into the banking fold is very important. But then inculcating them in these values, human rights, labor, environment, are just as important, we feel, and this is a good time to do that. So we're very pleased to be partnering with the GCNB to introduce this new SME toolkit. And we thank Shamin and the UNGC for choosing Brac Bank to be a partner for this pilot rollout. We appreciate the GCNB's cooperation in this regard, and we are quite confident that we will, through our large network, be able to roll out this toolkit very successfully over the next couple of years. As a member of the Global Alliance for Banking on Values and as a member of the UNGC, Brac Bank is committed to environmental and social goals. People, planet, and prosperity are our focus areas. We hope to continue to be contributing to the real economy of Bangladesh by this focus, particularly in the SME segment. Thank you all for your patient attention, and I hope you enjoy the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salim, for the introduction to the SME Toolkit, as well as giving us an insight how Brac looks at the SME for the future and the sustainability agenda. I would like to now ask Mr. Abdul Malik if Monsieur from Brac Bank can please bring him up here for a presentation. We want to hear exactly from the voices of SMEs. What is happening in Bangladesh? How are they coping with the different challenges they're facing? And what are we as institutional support giving them? So can I request Mr. Malik to come in front? Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Everyone is welcome, and I would like to introduce you to our Cassie Agro Limited. The Cassie Agro Limited, it's a poultry industry-based a group. It's a great pleasure to me just to introduce the group to you. And it's started the journey in year 2004. And at the support of the financial support from the Brac Bank, we gradually developed our industry one by one. And here actually, it's a successful history, a professional achievement, and the excellent and outstanding performance of Dr. Kaji Abu Said, the Managing Director of Kaji Agro Limited. The journey started in 2004 to support and develop the poultry industry in Bangladesh. He is the Managing Director of Kaji Agro Limited. And last 15 years, his ideas and business philosophies have been the most contributing factor to shape and guide the destiny of Kaji Agro Limited. Our vision, the endeavor to attain a position of leadership in each category of its businesses, the attain a high level of productivity in all its operations through effective and efficient use of resources with modern technology. Develop its employees by encouraging empowerment and rewarding the innovation. Promote an environment for learning and personal growth of its employees. Establish a harmonious relationship with the community and promote greater environmental responsibility within the sphere. Kaji Agro Limited, the company's investment mainly on the following categories. The Kaji Agro Limited in the year 2004, it mainly works with the feed additives for poultry industry. From the very beginning of the industry, we never import any antibiotic or harmful feed additives for the industry. And we actually work with the renowned, world-renowned principals to import the feed additives and nutritional products. And then we found that in the industry, there are some huge gap of raw materials, the quality products. Then we go for, we're searching the world-class raw materials manufacturer, and we started to import the raw materials, and it's trading to the local market. And then we, in the year 2015, let's say 2015, we ourselves then established the factory to manufacture the feed additives that we actually previously we import from the different countries, like, and now we can produce in our country mainly the vitamin mineral premix and other feed additives. In year 2017, we established the Kaji polymer. It's actually a green packaging, non-oven bags. You know, the PP bags, there are some environmental effect, so we go for the non-oven bag. The bag will destroy in the soil after a few months. So in year 2019, this year, we started the Kaji Pharmaceuticals as because the huge gap of the quality product of treatments for the birds. There's so many farmers, they are using the antibiotic, but we believe that without the antibiotic, the industry can be survived, and the poultry farmers, they will be benefited most. So that's why we develop the Cassie pharmaceuticals. Here we will just manufacture the additives for the treatment of the birds and the animals. This is actually our factory. Just at a glance, it looks very beautiful, neat and clean, and well-ventilated warehouse is there. You see our warehouse, there are also the cooling is there also, just to protect the all additives not to destroy by the heat or the environment. The factory environment, looks really greenish all the time and neat and clean. We practices the FIFO and product-wise area allotment, different inventory management. We maintaining the SOP and QA concern, dust-free, no air pollution, no effluent water discharge, monthly safety meeting and inspection there, well-equipped fire extinguisher, emergency lights and alarms is already equipped there. These are some pictures, these are the pictures, you see. The DG, the Honorable DG of Livestock, and this is our laboratory. And the owner of this company, our managing director, just started the business. He just received the certificate from the GMP for beginners from Vienna, Austria. And after getting the training from the GMP, he started actually the business. So his business always is really choosy and always think the not to any products not to harm for the animals. And our machineries, we took the most modern and sophisticated machineries and PLC operated, no dust emission, completely computerized operation systems, world technical know-how, qualified officers also. We recruit the efficient and enthusiastic some eligible candidates. There are nutritionists, veterinary doctors, engineers, and a highly qualified manpower. And we maintain the proper employee documentation, no gender discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. Even the two disabled people also working in our factory. And there is no child labor, and child labor is strictly prohibited. Actually, working environment for the industry, you know, it's very important for raising the industry or develop the industry. And we have the good understanding each other. We have the production bonus, incentive, profit share, structured working hour, not more than 8 hours, accidental policy and treatment coverage, entertainment tour outside the, Dhaka each and every year. Even foreign tour for extraordinary performance and neutral workplace and environment. Here's some pictures. Whenever yearly these are the tour we actually organize each year for our employee. These are our partner, global partners. Our global partners actually exclusive. We have some exclusive partners. Dr. Ekel, Germany, the last from the year 2009 we doing this business, and Eastman, USA, and Yara, Norway. And raw materials, we actually use the Brac Bank financial support. Thanks for the Brac Bank giving us the supports. And global suppliers, the BASF Germany, DSM Germany, Borghi ESF Italy, and Buller Switzerland for our machineries. And local partners, we have some local partners like the Seven Circles Limited, Bengal Group of Industries, Deshbandhu Polymers, and Sensible PP Oven Bags. And our valued, if you look our valued customer, you will get the most of the group of industries in our country, like the Nourish Poultry and Hatchery. They're the biggest poultry industry group. And the Cassie Farms Limited, you know, also the biggest one. And the CP Bangladesh and ACI Godrej Agrobet Limited, Quality Feeds Limited, Aman Feeds Limited, Protein House Limited, Aftab Group, City Group, Magna Group of Industries, Agatha, AG Agro, Agro Industrial Trust, Provita, Podda, and Bengal Group of Industries. All these are our actually valued customer. Sales strategy. Last year, yes, please. Last year, annual turnover was like this. You see, the additives, 3,500 metric ton additives we actually are marketing, and raw materials also 5,000, and PP bag, you see. And in the year, total turnover used 20 millions. We have some CSR activities also. The educational scholarship program, Kazi Nurul Haq Shikha Britti, Pakutia, Ghatal Tangai, and Jakia Bangladesh Dhaka, social awareness through some short videos and short films like Pother Shesh Jatri, Nirab Bidoy, and equal rights, child rights, women rights, helping to the unprivileged people. We are doing some work also, social work. And we organize foreign tour program in Europe for sharing the technical knowledge, almost 100 valued customers in our country. And this is a foreign tour. For conclusion, our mission is to enrich the quality of life of people through responsible application of knowledge, skills, and technology. Cassie Agro Limited is committed to the pursuit of excellence through world-class products, innovative processes, and empowered employees to provide the highest level of satisfaction to its customers. So we need the support. Thanks again, everybody, and Brac Bank to financially support the Cassie Agro Limited. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik from Cassie Agro Limited. This is an SME. This is not the big Cassie company, I've just been told. And this is an SME clientele of Brac. But this really proves through his presentation, Mr. Malik's presentation, that it is possible to make a green industry in Bangladesh. It is possible. Given the proper focus, the knowledge, and the resources, we can achieve a green industry in Bangladesh. And of course, we know that the ready-made garment sector already has a few lead industries, certified industries, which is actually in the world. I think we have 9 lead industries in Bangladesh. So the sky is the limit. This is the starting point for SMEs. We are discussing how we can overcome the challenges, and Brac Bank has done an excellent job in financing and also supporting, giving the technical know-how and the support to go further for the SMEs. So now we saw from the morning session, we talked about the SDGs, we talked about how we can bring in the SMEs into the focus of the sustainability framework. Now, I would like to request Ms. Leela Rashid from Bangladesh Bank, General Manager, SME and Special Programs, to actually discuss the policy implications. We know the individual companies are doing a lot of innovative implementations, but if the national framework is not conducive to how the SMEs will operate for the future and now, then it will be a hindrance. So Bangladesh Bank itself, as the central bank of the country, is actually helping SMEs to go further and learn about responsible business behavior and organizing certain capacity building efforts. So I would like to now ask Ms. Rashid to come up and say a few words how Bangladesh Bank is working with the SMEs in Bangladesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Abul Kalam Azad, Principal Coordinator, SDG Affairs, Prime Minister's Office. A special guest, Ms. Mia Sepo, UN Resident Coordinator, Bangladesh. Mr. Selim Hussein, Managing Director, Brac Bank. Mr. Kamran Rahman, President, Bangladesh Employers Federation. And Manager, UN Global Compact Office from New York, and Executive Director, Ms. Zaman. Thank you very much for inviting me here. Very good morning. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me here to speak, to say a few words from policy perspective at this event on SME Sustainability Day. The SME's potentials are yet to be fully utilized in Bangladesh, although they have the ability to create numerous job opportunities and to increase contribution to GDP. The sector accounts for over 35% of the total employment, and but the sector accounts, okay, in Bangladesh, it comprises both formal and informal sectors. And the small enterprises in Bangladesh mostly actually under informal category. So on the one hand, it enjoys the benefit of an informal sector, such as no tax obligation, no monitoring, no formal setup for hiring employees, etc. This basically depends on personal choices of owners. But on the other hand, it faces, these small enterprises, it faces many disadvantages at the same time, which is especially true for employers and workers. As informal sectors, laborers are not protected by labor laws, they don't have job opportunity, job security, and they have no defined working hours, no insurance or pension facilities, and their salary structure is also not transparent. And informal small entrepreneurs also face problems of getting access to many essential services, such as access to financial services. Considering these facts, and to meet SDGs target, the Bangladesh government has taken a few initiatives to develop SME in Bangladesh, in the country, so that it can be treated as formal sector, and at the same time, it can be linked with other related supply chain of the industry, which is essential for sustainable growth of any business. The government has formulated national industry policy, SME policy, and national financial inclusion strategy that are interlinked. In addition, the Bangladesh Bank has its own comprehensive SME-focused policy guidelines along the line of these national policies and strategies to accelerate financial support to the sector. The national industry policy has provided the overall guidelines, which has classified different industries on the basis of its size and type. It has identified priority sector for development where SME were given special importance. A draft SME policy has been prepared by the Ministry of Industry very recently, and it has been approved by the Cabinet just a month ago. This SME policy highlighted 6 important causes that are responsible for the development of SME sector in Bangladesh. It acknowledged that access to finance, access to technology, access to market, access to training, access to business support, and access to information are the major areas that demand special attention from policymakers. Therefore, separate implementation strategies have been developed in the policy paper by identifying responsible agencies and organizations along with timeline to address the problems in respective fields. Bangladesh Bank is one of the important organizations among them, especially to focus on the access to finance. Ministry of Industry is the umbrella organization that is leading and coordinating the whole issue of developing a sustainable SME sector in Bangladesh. As central bank, Bangladesh Bank monitors and supervises all the financial institutions in the market where commercial banks play a significant role. The Bangladesh Bank provides guidelines as well as financial supports to the SME sector with the help of these financial institutions so that small entrepreneurs would get easy access to finance from the formal market. It has initiated this endeavor since 2010. We set yearly SME credit target for the banks and non-bank financial institutions, that means NBFI. They have to submit their target at the beginning of each year. For the current year, we expect that 23% of the total loans of these banks and NBFIs would be disbursed to the CMSME, that means cottage, micro, small and medium industry sector in Bangladesh, and 15% of which should be given to women entrepreneurs. We also have given instruction to them to sanction loan up to taka 2.5 million or 30 to 31,000 US dollar to women entrepreneur without any physical collateral. In such case, loan can be sanctioned against personal or social guarantee. Banks and NBFIs are being instructed to establish separate SME desks in their branch offices and to monitor their branch operations both at regional level and head office level. We collect quarterly reports on prescribed formats on their credit delivery performance and arrange meetings with the heads of SME of these organizations after analyzing these reports to evaluate their progress to achieve prefixed goal or target. To promote SME sector, we also operate a number of refinance schemes, such as schemes for agro-processing industry, for new entrepreneurs, and for women entrepreneurs, as well as for other small industries. Banks and NBFIs are encouraged to avail these refinance facilities for SME financing from Bangladesh Bank at a concessional rate of 5% or bank rate. They can avail 100% refinance facility if they qualify. Under these schemes, an SME entrepreneur may enjoy credit facility from a participating banks or NBFI at a lower rate. Recently, we have initiated another pilot program, namely Credit Guarantee Scheme, to support women and other vulnerable groups who are facing problems to provide required collateral to get access to formal finance. In addition, Bangladesh Bank offers incentives to the banks in the form of loan provisioning option and capital allocation to support SMEs. Banks are allowed to maintain only 2.5% general provision for SME loans, which is 1% for corporate finance. But despite all these efforts, we still are far away from the intended impact. Supply-demand gap in financing SME sector still persists. In Bangladesh, generally banks are not willing to finance in small business. They perceive it risky and costly. Rather, they prefer financing in big industries, though it has already been proved that investing in big industry is risky and costly too. Sometimes investing in big industries is riskier than investing in small industries due to its large exposure in credit portfolio of a bank. So we hope that these organizations, these banks and NBFIs, should revisit their preference and make a sensible decision in favor of right kind of portfolio mix. We are encouraging them to finance in the supply chain and in the cluster of SME sector to reduce both cost and risk, but any visible outcome is yet to be observed. Instead of addressing isolated units, we need to identify the entire supply chain from production process of initial raw materials to final product for customer. A holistic focus is needed to bring the sector under a formal category and to ensure its sustainable growth. Sporadic, uncoordinated, and isolated interventions may not be fruitful as expected. It will be a kind of wastage of resources instead. I should admit that formulating entrepreneur-friendly policies is easier, actually, than ensuring implementation of these policies, which are the major challenges what we have been facing every day. So, committed, well-coordinated efforts of all stakeholders, that means sector itself, policymakers, support agencies, associations, and others are needed for the development of sustainable SMEs in Bangladesh. I'm hopeful that we could make it. With this positive wish, I should end here. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Leah Rashid. I think, her deliberations actually highlighted that there's what the Bangladesh Bank and at a national level, what are the legal frameworks for getting assistance in capacity building of the SMEs. Not only the financial access, but also we heard about IT. Bangladesh is going towards the digital Bangladesh, and I think in the next 10 years we cannot ignore the contribution and the quick pace of IT taking over our lives. We see it in the day-to-day lives, and I think trade and markets have to actually take this into account when we think of our business behavior, when we think of also transparency, because most of the big companies, we see that they have websites where they actually can reflect what they're doing, how they're doing business. And I think this comes to a point where Ms. Rashid mentioned that sustainable business also means that we should look more into transparency and how we can also build awareness among our clientele. So I really appreciate how Bangladesh Bank is moving forward on the SME landscape. And I think that banks actually should now look towards financing and supporting and giving the technical support that Brac Bank and others have been doing in the financial sector. I would like to now invite Mr. Kamran T. Rahman, President, Bangladesh Employers Federation, to actually tell us about how can we mobilize the private sector to enhance the capacity of SMEs. We see that already in the northern countries, the big companies, multinationals and others, are working with their supply chains. How can we ensure that our supply chains are also enacting responsible business behavior, and how can they engage in the SDGs as well? The Sustainable Development Goal number 8, decent work and economic growth, can not only happen alone with the big companies, but the whole critical mass of SMEs that exist in Bangladesh. So with that, I invite Mr. Kamran T. Rahman to say a few words.
Thank you, Shami. Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Abul Kalam Azad, Principal Coordinator, SDG Affairs of the Prime Minister's Office. Distinguished panelists, Ms. Leela Rashid, General Manager, SME and Special Programs, Bangladesh Bank. Mr. Salim Arif Hussain, Managing Director and CEO of Brac Bank Limited. Ms. Mia Seppo, UN Resident Coordinator, Bangladesh, and Ms. Mary Lou, Manager, UN Global Compact of the New York office. And members of the business community, representatives of national and international organizations, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good morning to you all. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be invited today to share some of my thoughts at this flagship event of the SME Sustainability Day, being organized by the UN Global Compact Bangladesh, UN Global Compact New York, ILO Bangladesh, UNICEF, Brac Bank Limited, and DBL Group. On behalf of Bangladesh Employers Federation, I would like to most sincerely thank the organizers for taking this initiative to organize a dialogue on SME sustainability at a time when the world is going through profound demographic changes, global interconnectedness, and is on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution. Bangladesh Employers Federation, as an apex organization, specializes in labor and social policy, having in its membership major industrial associations and companies in the formal sector as members, and 8 industry skills councils representing both formal as well as informal sectors as its associates. SMEs operate both in the formal as well as in the informal sector in Bangladesh. BEF is engaged and much concerned about the future of SMEs in general, which plays a very important role in generating employment in the country. It is concerned particularly in view of the global aspirations and needs of the global trade and supply chains to comply with the global standards, in particular the Sustainable Development Goals, and for the business community, in particular Sustainable Development Goal 8. The international labor standards, environmental sustainability, as well as UN business and human rights. Bangladesh is one of the most densely populated countries in the world today. According to the latest labor force survey, we have a total of around 65 million people in our labor market. As a nation, on the one hand, we have the challenge of sustaining the level of employment that we have already created and addressing the issues of generating additional employment opportunities for around 2 million people who are joining the labor market every year. And on the other hand, our enterprises are having to look into possibilities of innovation and business processes and adopting new technologies in order to improve efficiencies and remain sustainable, even if it is at the cost of creating some unemployment, maybe temporarily. Small and medium enterprises are vital building blocks in economic growth, employment generation, and poverty reduction. SMEs make up more than 90% of all businesses that provide 2 out of 3 private sector jobs in the country today. For decades, SMEs have been facing various challenges, from access to finance, lack of capital, skilled manpower shortages, and poor training facilities, all the way up to marketing their products. Despite so many policies and programs taken by the government and Bangladesh Bank, SMEs are still constrained by limited access to credit. A recent study conducted by World Bank and Policy Research Institute shows that at present, micro, small, and medium enterprises sector require around 23,700 crore taka of financing. The most alarming matter is that credits flowing to new and small medium entrepreneurs have decreased by more than 15% in the first half of 2019, as many, not all, risk-averse bankers were unwilling to offer such loans, according to the central bank's latest statistics. Amid all these problems, we see a ray of hope, however, in the newly formulated 4-year-long SME Policy 2019, which aims to form Credit Guarantee Fund for SMEs, provides facilities such as credit and technical support to all SMEs, and which delivers special benefits for women entrepreneurs. Bangladesh Employers Federation has a strong commitment to develop skilled workforce and generate employment opportunities. BEF has been collaborating with the International Labour Organization in various skills development programs over the years. Along with various skills training programs, BEF has also conducted programs for small and medium enterprises on skills training, entrepreneurship development, as well as the 4 strategic objectives of the decent work agenda of the International Labour Organization in the supply chains. What are the 4 strategic objectives? They are: 1, promote decent employment opportunities; 2, enhance social protection; 3, strengthen tripartism and social dialogue; and 4, guarantee fundamental principles and rights at work. The first 3 are pretty straightforward: employing decent working conditions at the workplace and so on; social protection of employees; strengthening tripartism and social dialogue, tripartism meaning government, employers, and employees, and social dialogue amongst employers and employees. Now, the 4th one, guaranteeing fundamental principles and rights at work. This refers to a declaration of the International Labour Organization in the year 1998. So the 1998 ILO Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work declares that all members, even if they have not ratified the conventions in question, have an obligation arising from the very fact of membership in the organization to respect, to promote, and to realize in good faith and in accordance with the Constitution the principles concerning the fundamental rights which are the subject of those conventions, namely freedom of association and the effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining, the elimination of all forms of forced or compulsory labor, the effective abolition of child labor, and the elimination and discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. Ladies and gentlemen, the impact of rapid transformational change is already being felt in the world of work. While groundbreaking technological advances, artificial intelligence, automation, and robotics will create new jobs, there will be millions who will lose their jobs in this transition and may also be the least equipped to seize the new opportunities. Today's skills will not match the jobs of tomorrow, and newly acquired skills may quickly become obsolete. The greening of our economies will certainly create millions of new jobs as we adopt sustainable practices and clean technologies. But other jobs will disappear as countries scale back their carbon footprint and reduce their dependence on non-renewable resource-intensive industries. The world is going through profound demographic changes. While some countries are going through an expanding youth population, others are experiencing aging populations, putting pressure on their labor markets as well as their social security systems. Yet in these shifts lie new possibilities to provide affordable care for the elderly and create inclusive, active societies. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may reiterate, more than 80% of the jobs are created by the private sector, and the SMEs play a huge role in this process. Sustainable enterprises is the key to decent work and social justice, which is the very goal the ILO has been pursuing for the last 100 years. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Rahman. We take the highlights of your presentation that decent work is part of the whole process of sustainability, and that rights to information, we heard before that the new SME policy or guideline developed by Bangladesh Bank, which Ms. Rashid had mentioned, is actually a way towards encouraging and including IT as a mobilizer, as a tool to mobilize SME banking and SME capacity building, as well as we just heard about decent work and the human rights agenda. So it seems that we are struggling and we are working across that, but not many SMEs or big organizations or companies actually realize the depth that we have to work and the challenges we face to become a middle-income country. We need to also get our global standards at a higher level. I think that is the challenge, but it's a challenge that we can face and we can actually solve. And working together, we are here, all of us in this room, we have the private sector representatives, we have the development sector representatives, we have the government representatives and civil society here. We all need to work together to achieve a sustainable progress towards the future of Bangladesh. With that, I would like to invite our chief guest, the Honorable Principal Coordinator, SDG Affairs from the Prime Minister's Office, Mr. Abul Kalam Azad, to actually tell us how can we bring the SMEs under this umbrella of the SDG framework. We know that all countries are reporting to the UN on their progress on the SDG Agenda 2030, and there are 17 goals, and not all goals are at par at the same level of interaction or implementation. We just heard from Kamran that yes, we need to include the private sector, which provides the maximum of employment, where the SMEs are critical mass there and play a critical role. How can we bring them into the SDG framework? And we would like to hear from Mr. Azad that how this is possible. Already the government is doing a lot of interventions and initiatives through their ministries. We want to say that we need to have the private sector side by side to progress on the SDGs. So with that, I do invite Mr. Abul Kalam Azad. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The guests on dais, Ms. Mia Sapo, along with others, and dear friends. My life made very easy by the last two speakers, especially Mr. Kamran and representative from the Bangladesh Bank. The role of SME in the economic development, I don't want to emphasize on this because much is talked on this, and we know the story of China. Why China progressed so much? Because of their cheap products. Why? How? With the SME. When China looked into its problem, he thought, yes, big industry take long time. And you all know, in China, they closed the universities for about 10 years. They thought technical education would be the key of success of China. And industry, in terms of small and medium-term enterprise, it grew in all the houses. So why we get quality product? Obviously, low quality product of China is there also. All types of product. So key to success in the economy of Bangladesh obviously is the SME. If we want to give facts and figure, then obviously you will be overburdened with these facts and figure. But I don't know whether Bangladesh SME Foundation is here. In our country, there is a foundation we call SME Foundation. It has a chairman, it has a board. I don't know why they are missing here. It formed in 2007. And then they identified some issues. I will just read out the issues which they identified in 2007. You will find that those identification is still valid. Number one, strengthen regulatory and legislative framework in favor of SMEs. Identify problems and prospects of SME sector and cluster for designing appropriate development interventions. Ensure availability of business support service for SME, access to institutional finance for SME, upgradation and adaptation of appropriate technology for SME, develop human resource for SME, adaptation, information and communication technology in SME development, position women entrepreneurs into mainstream business community, cluster-based SME development, institutional linkage for SME development. They also identified some issues which are related to Bangladesh Bank, which correctly addressed by Ms. Leela. Now the issues which were identified by SME Foundation, from them they are working on that, but they have some limitations also. Very recently, we were visiting fields for looking into SDG, disseminating SDG information involving all sectors people, including women, youth, SME, small and medium enterprises. Then we find that the issues which were identified by the SME Foundation in 2009, most of them are still valid, especially access to finance. They used to tell there are some barriers, like when we try to have the export-import non-tariff barriers, there are some barriers also in terms of providing them loan, especially to the small enterprises. Another problem is, in the name of SME, the medium enterprises, they take all the money almost. Whenever the small enterprises go to bank, they used to tell our window of SME is exhausted. So, as policymaker, I would request Bangladesh Bank to again make a demarcation that which part should be for the small enterprises and for the medium enterprises. Again, question comes of MSME. What's about the micro enterprise? In our country, I believe key to success again, along with the SME, is the micro enterprises. If we look into the government program of Amar Bari Amar Khamar, My Home, My Farm. So this My Home, My Farm, we have about 68,000 organizations, each of these organizations having 60 members. So 60 into 68,000. These are the total number of membership in the Amar Bari Amar Khamar. And each of the houses are being developed as their farm. They are given different types of training, access to fund. They have their, we call this micro savings program of the government. They save 200 taka each month. Government gives him or her 200 taka. And at the end of 2 years, when they are going to graduate, the total amount of money, the government gives another same amount of money for their economic development. So they take decision, they take loan from that fund. And this fund is being managed by Polli Sanchoy Bank, Village Savings Bank. The owner of this bank is these women, poor women and men in the village. The beauty of this program is, this is micro savings, and the interest or service charge which they give, the operating cost of the bank is borne from there, rest money goes back to them as they are the owner. So this model works very well. Now, the issue of SME, in our country, we have much more opportunity because of the densely populated country. We have the opportunity to engage the women, which we did a lot. If we discuss about the economic development of our country, you look into the FDI, very poor, though it is progressing. In the last year, it is triple, but again, not more than $3-4 billion. For the development of our country, for the implementation of SDG, we need $66 billion on an average till 2030. Every year, extra than that of our regular budget. Our budget is about $60-70 billion, but we again need another $60-70 billion. Only this is possible. A lion's share will come from the MSME. We need to look into this very carefully. So FDI and we are trying with 100 economic zone, 28 high-tech parks. Investors are coming, but that may meet a part of it. Government is working on skill development. This will cater again MSME and also sending our people in abroad for better migration and good remittance. We strongly believe that some new area which may come up for the SME activities, especially the presentation was on the agro products. This can be a very good work. In all the economic zones, we are trying to encourage people so that they can have their participation in that place. Also, another new work area you can think on, that is the sand, cement, brick. At present, we are polluting the nature with the burnt bricks by using coal or by using firewoods or by using gas. But government adopted its policy so that sand, cement, brick can be used in the buildings. Government started this. And you see, government has started dredging of rivers. Huge silt, 2 billion ton per year from Himalayan. By dredging, we are getting huge sand, and there is a problem of managing this sand, managing this silt. If we start huge production of bricks, this can be, again, the micro enterprise. In each of the house, these bricks can be produced. I request the entrepreneurs here to look into this area. So we need to work with the blockchain, value chain, and using artificial intelligence, how best we can support the SMEs. Especially in terms of the SDG, the private sector is deemed the most important player in the process of SDG. Predominantly, SME have direct role in realizing the economic goals, namely Goal 8, that is the promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. And Goal 9, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. And also Goal 10, reduce inequality within and among countries. We have identified the issues, especially the access to finance, business environment, technology, access to market, the value chain, all these are being discussed here. So my request, if you provide the issues to SME Foundation, this foundation again run by, as it is a foundation, run by so many entrepreneurs, men, women, different category. So SME Foundation is the government legal platform to take up all these issues to the government, to Bangladesh Bank for solving the issues of SME. I would encourage MSME, SME, medium enterprises, in all way. We all know the growth of Bangladesh, 8.13. The lion's share is from the SME. So you are the proud participants of Bangladesh development. Per capita GDP about $2,000. So this is the real outcome of the participation of the small and medium enterprises. I believe today's this is sustainability day will bring much more strength, much more opportunities for Bangladesh SME developing the country and taking forward the women entrepreneurs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Azad, for your deliberations. Actually, the whole inaugural session, we heard about the importance of SMEs and how they can link to better business efficiency, as well as what are already happening in Bangladesh. We heard from Mr. Kamran that a lot of capacity building is going on. From Mr. Salim Hussain, we heard that there is a lot of access to finance, but it's not enough. We are still facing the challenge of not being able to link up with all the SMEs in Bangladesh. And there's still a lot of policy implications there. And we heard from Bangladesh Bank that already government is giving a critical emphasis on mobilizing and building the capacity of SMEs in Bangladesh. If we look at the SDG framework, if we look at the 17 goals, a number of goals actually can be introduced at a very short pace with the SMEs, like the one SDG 8, decent work, economic growth. If we look at poverty, we already heard that employability has been generated through the industry and private sector mobilization. We can also see that, if we want to look at the SDG on food and hunger, that also contributes to SMEs being mobilized and building their capacity. So we can all work together for the partnership for the goals, SDG 17, and also creating strong institutions, SDG 16. So with that, I thank all the panel speakers, but we have a short Q&A session just for 10 minutes. So those of you who would like to ask anything to the panel, I would like you to direct the question, make it short, please. Just introduce yourself, say the question, and then just direct it to the individual panel speaker that you would want the response from. So microphones, please, are there in the audience. So please raise your hand or stand up if you want to ask any questions or have any comments. Yeah.
Thank you, honorable speakers. Just to say, the SMEs that the speaker said that SMEs.
Can you just introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Salim Reza Hassan. I'm working with Solidarity. Solidarity is an external network organization working on the sustainable supply chain. We are working across 13 communities, globally working in 44 countries. In Bangladesh, we are working on agriculture, food supply chain development, and also started working on the addressing sustainability issues, the chemical safety in the leather industries. So one of the issues that we learned that SMEs is the growth, right? The Honorable Chief Guest has mentioned this case of the China. But in Bangladesh, we have been started the SME development, but have we done any analysis? Why many of these SMEs who started in a good business, but in 3 to 4 years, they shut down. So something that we have to do, understand that analysis, the sustainability, when talking about the sustainability, that we have to understand what the issues and concerns of the SME facing. They start in a good start, but in 3 to 4 years, they shut down. So that is the critical point for the sustainability. So this is my comments to the honorable speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Who did you direct that comment to? Was there anybody in the panel that would like to respond?
I think it's all through. Basically, since this honorable chief guest has mentioned the SME foundations, it might be a new agenda for the SME foundation to look into that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If you have any questions, please raise your hand. The microphone will be taken to you. Any? No? No comments, no questions from the floor? Okay.
So let me respond.
Yes.
The issue which you were speaking.
As you were telling about that after 3-4 years, a good number of SMEs are being shut down. I think if it is, then we need to look into it very seriously. I believe this will be an issue of research for the SME Foundation. On behalf of SME Foundation, I carry this. I will ventilate this issue to them. And if you have some information, please provide them. Because we need to encourage the SME, and all in this room understand that if SMEs cannot run properly, the growth of Bangladesh will not be sustainable. Question of progress, question of going to double digit is no more there. But if you want to sustain 8%, then again we need to get the full support of the SMEs. So please support the SME Foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other panelists would like to say a few words on that? Yeah.
Hello. Brac Bank's experience with this sector, the SME customer segment as we call it, is about 18 years old. And we've been through a number of cycles, and the segment ranges right from cottage, micro, small, then into what we call medium-sized businesses, right up to 60, 70 crores, starting from 5 or 7 lakh taka. So it's a broad range. Our experience is that, one, this segment, the customers in this segment generally have very little equity. They use a lot of bank finance or institutional finance to build up their equity. So the nature of this client is different from a larger corporate or commercial clientele where one would expect, say, 30 or 40% equity to be involved in any project. As a result of this, when there are stresses in the environment, and that stress could be competitive in nature, new competition, it could be some climatic changes, for example, floods, or et cetera, there could be price-related changes in the government tariff or tax structure, duty structure, import substitutions, et cetera. Any slight change has an immediate impact on these clients, and clients are not able to sustain stress for very long, particularly the small clients. Therefore, they need buffers. Then again, many of these clients do not know how to make themselves bankable. Therefore, they are not able to know how to approach a bank, for example, or any other institution for financial support. It is, of course, you could say, the bank's responsibility to also find ways to help such clients become more bankable. So it's a two-way street, and we are trying hard, but still we find many of these clients do not know how to do that. Therefore, there is a strong need in the industry, we feel, for what we call not just financial support, but other kinds of technical support in terms of marketing, in terms of accounting, in terms of technology or computer usage, in terms of compliance-related education. These different kinds of education are needed before a small, an SME client can become bankable. They need to be taught how to do all this. As yet in Bangladesh, say compared to India, for example, we have very few incubation centers for new entrepreneurs. So, and even existing SMEs need lots of training. So that is still absent. Many institutions, including Brac Bank and Brac, the larger NGO, are trying to do a lot in this area, but there is no doubt that there is an enormous lack of such training education facilities. And these are important in making an SME business sustainable. টেকসই করার জন্য এটা খুব প্রয়োজন এই এডুকেশনগুলো. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just two sentences. Just to add, in Bangladesh, the venture capital, angel fund, equity financing, all are missing. All the entrepreneurs is not fit to take loan. If these windows are there, then only for some of the entrepreneurs possible to sustain in the market. Unfortunately, in Bangladesh, these did not flourish. Even we did not start even. We need to work on these areas also. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just ask from that side, Ms. Leela Rashid, some concluding comments, remarks, please. Each speaker can give a 2-minute conclusion.
It's not actually a response to the audience. It's that I would like to just add one request. Our honorable chief guest mentioned that we should focus on micro and small entrepreneur. Actually, we have that policy already. We already have mentioned that 50% of total CMSME loan should be given to a small cottage, micro, and small industries. That is one point. So we already have that instruction. And secondly, sir mentioned that we don't have any equity entrepreneur fund. We already have, sir, equity entrepreneur fund. That is EAF fund in Bangladesh Bank. It's running for last 18 years almost. But our experience was not very good. So we recently, last year, we revised that policy, and now we are providing not equity fund exactly. It's a kind of very soft loan at 2% interest rate. So they are working on that. So that is particularly for agro-processing industry and IT industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Kamran Rahman, some concluding remarks.
I think there's a need for assessing the situation. If some of the SMEs are actually closing 3 to 4 years after they actually open shop, is it because of technological reasons or is it because of financial reasons? Like Mr. Salim Arif Hussain just mentioned, many of these SMEs may not be bankable. They need other kinds of assistance. They probably need some hand-holding by the SME Foundation. They may be able to organize that hand-holding or mentoring for some of these SMEs. But then again, all SMEs are not same. Some SMEs may need hand-holding. Others are almost like corporates. So we need to differentiate between the various SMEs as well. But a needs assessment is certainly essential, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kamran Rahman. Can we ask Mary Lou to say the concluding remarks?
I'm gonna maybe skip my turn because I'm gonna have like almost an hour and a half discussing decent work and sustainability with you guys, so you might be a bit bored to hear me too much. But I think it's great to hear that at the policy level, there's a lot that is being done in Bangladesh to better support SMEs and further the understanding of expectations when it comes to sustainability. So we'll be able to discuss a bit further in the next session.
Yes, Mr. Azad, if some concluding remarks from you? No. No? Okay. Maya Sapo, yeah.
Yeah, just very briefly, I think, data and evidence is what drives the SDG agenda and what should always drive our programming and what we're doing. So I think my biggest take-home message from this discussion is the comment made that a lot of SMEs close shop within 3 or 4 years from opening, and we really need to understand why that is. And I hope if this workshop can help clarify and answer that question, that's going to certainly provide a lot of entry points in how do we actually ensure that sustainability of SMEs. So I think I'm looking forward to hearing from the organizers what questions emerge on that, what answers emerge on that question through this one-day event. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hussain, some concluding remarks?
Brac Bank remains committed to this client segment. As I said earlier, our growth over the last 3 years, year on year, is about 27%. The book size now is about $1.3 billion US dollars, 12-13,000 koti takar moto. Our aspiration is to grow this at 50%, double that growth rate roughly. And we will be investing heavily in technology, in digital technology, to support that kind of growth rate. I'd like to make a positive comment. We find that the central bank here in Bangladesh greatly supports us. If I remember correctly, the SME SPD department was opened about 2009-10, something like that. And over the last decade, they have really supported through their SME policy frameworks and different refinance windows and other activities. They've really supported those banks or financial institutions who are willing to step into this market and do something for the clients. And we see a continuation of that happening. We heard earlier today that there is a new SME policy that is going to be rolled out by the government very shortly. So we find that their support is very, very important to us, and the expectation is that will continue in the future as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hussain. We have now come to the conclusion of today's inaugural program, but we do have 2 technical sessions after this, so please stay on for that. I would like to thank all the panel speakers for being here as special guests. The chief guest, Mr. Abul Kalam Azad, in his busy schedule, actually came today, and we are very lucky to have him for quite a while. And I would like to thank all the participants today who have come and actually shown solidarity for the SME Sustainability Day. So thank you all very much. On behalf of my partners, Global Compact Network Bangladesh, Global Compact New York office, ILO, UNICEF, Brac Bank, and DBL Group, I'd like to thank you for joining us. And please stay on for the technical sessions on decent work and a better work program, as well as on child rights. So these will be interesting sessions. We'll have a lot of speakers and also experiences of best practices by companies. So please stay on. And also we will have the SME certificate giving ceremony as well. So with that, I conclude the inaugural session today. I would request the panelists just to sit for 5 more minutes. We'll have quick group photo. Thank you so much for coming and joining us and showing solidarity to today's event. Thank you very much. We will start the session in about 5 minutes, so please be here in 5 minutes.